time to talk about one of the newest programs on the campus of Tiffin University, women's wrestling. No better person to talk about it than head coach Britney Gadd. Coach, how are you?
Good, how about you?
Not too bad. First off, I'd like to say welcome to you. Congratulations on getting the position. Let's go ahead and talk about you individually. Let's talk about your path through wrestling. You go to the University of Cumberland. You're a two-sport athlete there, wrestling and soccer. Talk about the path that took you to the University of Cumberland and why wrestling for you.
Well, I guess the path that took me to UC was the opportunity that a coach in high school gave me to see, oh, women's wrestling does exist, and these programs out here do exist. And at the time, there was only probably a handful of programs out there, but there were opportunities for girls to wrestle in college. And so I just researched some schools, and Cumberland's came up, and actually went down to a tournament there and fell in love with the school, and originally went there for wrestling and then somehow ended up doing both sports.
So in the end, wrestling was the way to go for you. Is there any particular
Yeah.
reason why you chose wrestling over soccer?
To me, I love the sport. I love what it does mentally. It's just a hard grind, but at the end of the day, it's so rewarding. It's no other feeling you would get, I think, playing any other sport. Soccer to me was more fun, but wrestling was more rewarding because it's something that you worked hard for, you trained for, and there's no other feeling than getting your hand raised at the end of the day. So
Let's talk a little bit about your success as an individual. You're an all-conference wrestler. You're an All-American. You're a national champion. You've also had a couple victories at the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. You know, when you look at that success you've had, could you take that success that you had on the wrestling mat and equate that to soccer, or is it just you focus strictly on wrestling and that's how you obtain that success?
To me, I think wrestling came, like the knowledge of it, the technique of it came a little bit easier to me. Soccer was just more fun, and I happened to be really athletic, so I did well in that sport too. But wrestling to me, I worked for, and I trained hard for it, and I guess it's just always been my cutting edge, like the thing that I was most passionate about.
What made you want to get into coaching?
Well, I kind of just fell into it. So when I graduated Cumberland, I didn't really know the direction of my life or where I was going or anything, and so my coach at the time approached me and asked if I wanted to stay on as a grad assistant and kind of get involved with coaching, and slowly I grew into the coaching roles, and so I had about a couple years of experience at the Cumberlands and then moved on from there.
Any mentors besides your former head coach that stick out in your mind that you try and take techniques from or just kind of bounce ideas off of?
Well, the only mentor that I have is my college coach, other than what I have now, Coach Simcoe. He's pretty awesome in helping me with growing me as far as technique goes.
And now, Coach Gadd, we will bring in head wrestling coach and recently named director of wrestling operations, head men's wrestling coach Joey Simcoe. Coach, thanks for sitting down along with Coach Gadd.
Absolutely.
Okay, Coach Simcoe, when you look at Coach Gadd and her resume, what was it about her that you told yourself, or you felt down deep in your heart, that's the person we want leading this new program?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. When she applied, I read through her resume. I was very excited about that. I got to speak to her on the phone a couple times. And then we brought her in for an interview, and we were on our way back from Cleveland. I picked her up, and I got to spend her interview process. I got to spend, pretty much a whole day with her. And I just, 30 minutes on the way back to Tiffin, I was pretty sold on Britney and her philosophies on wrestling, her philosophies on life. And, and then we got to do dinner and really have a conversation, and where she wants to take this program, it's exactly what I was thinking, and our philosophies meshed. It was just the perfect storm. So during Coach Gadd's interview process, or I guess before she actually interviewed, we had talked on the phone once, and she calls me because they were having trouble with the front headlock series, and I had to FaceTime with her, and I showed her a technique that I hit, out of a front headlock. And probably the coolest thing was she implemented it into her practice, and this is long before she even knew that she was coming up for an interview. So, you know, when that happened, and like I said, you know, we spent that time in the car, and that day together, she kind of sold herself.
Coach Gadd, when you were going through the interview process, what was it about Coach Simcoe when you looked at him and it made you think, you know, I want to take this position?
I mean, he's an awesome dude. Great mentor for his guys. What drew me here was his hunger for wrestling, his desire to keep growing, his desire to grow the sport, and just his knowledge of the sport. I know he's going to help develop me and my technique, and watching him roll around on the mat, he's a scrambler, so he brings some funk to the wrestling style, and that's gonna work really well with our style of wrestling, which is freestyle. So I'm gonna learn a lot from this guy. And another thing is I appreciate his hard work into making this happen, to making this program happen, giving women an opportunity to wrestle in college. He's put a lot of work into it.
Coach Simcoe, you've done a ton of work with the grassroots of wrestling, with the younger generation. Talk about how important and how just on a huge level this impacts wrestling here at not only here at Tiffin in the state of Ohio, that you have a women's program that you can now welcome in young girls instead of just only going after the younger boys. You can now appease a whole different age group, and it's got to be a huge recruiting tool for you.
Yeah, it's actually really awesome. We had a young lady come in last night. She's 8 years old. We had Biddy Club last night, and she came in and was scrapping, and her hair fell out of her ponytail, and I loved it because she just she was wrestling, her hair fell out, and she threw it back up and instantly like hit a double leg. You know what I mean? It was just like this, and it was one. It's awesome. I've watched girls wrestle for a long time and not have a place to go, and like Coach Gadd said before, a home base. Wrestling in Ohio is a very rich tradition, and I've been pretty adamant that we needed to do this for a while, and the timing was right, and I think it all worked out with a purpose. It's just been the right process to make it happen.
What does it mean to be named the Director of Wrestling Operations? I mean, you've worked your whole career for this, and it's got to be something that makes you very proud.
Yeah, very much so. I'm still learning everything that it entails, and it's an honor. I mean, to be honest, I'm very excited to be associated with the first women's program in Ohio. I'm excited to have Coach Gadd here and see what she's gonna do with this program. And I like I said, I'm still learning the role, but I'm very excited about it, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
I guess what I appreciate most about Tiffin is that it's Tiffin wrestling. It's not men's wrestling, women's wrestling. It's just Tiffin wrestling, and that women are treated as equal here, and like we don't have to be so adamant about saying women's wrestling. And I think for so long we had to fight for like, hey, we are women wrestlers, we exist, like pay attention to us. Like here it's a family and they appreciate us, and I was like, man, I hope I get this job.
For those recruits that could be watching this or seeing this, why Tiffin University? Why Tiffin Wrestling?
For me, I think Tiffin Wrestling provides everything that we need to be successful. We have a good support group here that care about women's wrestling, and they care about advancing the sport as a whole, starting from youth all the way up to college-aged girls. And one thing I love about here is we give back to the youth. Like we're about developing the youth wrestling so that it sparks that interest early, and that's even better.
Well, Coach Gadd, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us. I look forward to doing this more with you. If you'd like more information on what Coach Gadd is doing, as well as Coach Simcoe, go to gotiffindragons.com. Go to the sports tab, bottom left-hand corner, men's wrestling, bottom right-hand corner, women's wrestling. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time, and hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been a look at Tiffin University Women's Wrestling.